The notification lit up Olivia's phone just as she was finishing her shift at work. It was from her mother. Short, cold, brutal. Don't even think about coming to Christmas. You make us feel poor. Stay away. Olivia stared at the words for a long moment, feeling the familiar sting creep up from her chest to her throat. The fluorescent lights above her buzzed softly, the world going strangely quiet around her. She could almost hear her heart pounding. She could almost see the little girl inside her once again asking, "What did I do wrong this time?" But she didn't cry. Not anymore. Not this time. Instead, Olivia placed her phone face down on the counter, took a deep breath, and let the sadness settle like dust. She didn't fight it, didn't argue with it. She just accepted that once again, she was being cast out of the family she had sacrificed everything for. It wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. Her hands moved automatically. She picked up her phone again, opened her banking app, scrolled to the scheduled Christmas transfers she had set up just weeks ago. Thousands of dollars in personalized gifts. Handwritten notes she had planned. Thoughtful, expensive tokens she had worked extra hours to afford, hoping, somewhere deep inside, that maybe this year would be different. That maybe love could be bought after all. Without a second thought, she canceled every single one. Then, with steady fingers, Olivia pulled up her most recent bank statement, a silent record of the $560,000 debt she had spent years paying down. Every crushing bill, every lonely night working 2 jobs, every time she said no to herself so she could someday say yes to them, all there in black and white. No anger, no explanation, no paragraphs trying to justify herself. She simply screenshotted the balance, attached it to a message, and sent it straight to her mother's phone. No caption, no emojis, nothing, just the truth they never wanted to see. Then she blocked them. Every single number. Mom, Dad, sister, group chats. She felt the vibration as calls tried to come through, ignored them. She watched the texts flood in, silenced them. She imagined the panic spreading through her family like wildfire, and for once, she didn't feel guilty. She felt free. She gathered her things quietly, slinging her worn-out bag over her shoulder. As she stepped out into the cold December night, the chill hit her full in the face, but it felt refreshing, like stepping into a new life. Her breath fogged in the air, the city lights blinking softly around her, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she had to explain herself to anyone. She thought about all the years she had bent herself backward, trying to fit into a family that had decided long ago she wasn't enough. About the birthdays missed, the graduations ignored, the long silent treatments whenever she succeeded at something they hadn't approved of. It had always been a battle for crumbs of approval, a constant audition for love she was never going to win. Tonight, she wasn't auditioning anymore. As she walked down the block, toward the bus stop, she tucked her hands into her jacket pockets and smiled faintly to herself. It wasn't a smile of triumph. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was a quiet acknowledgement that she had changed, that she had chosen herself this time. And somewhere behind her, buzzing phones and angry voices filled the spaces she had finally decided to leave empty. Olivia's boots scraped against the icy sidewalk as she waited for the bus, but her mind had already traveled years back, to the beginning, to the mountain of debt she hadn't even created but had ended up carrying alone. It had started right after college, a call from her parents, voices laced with panic. "We're about to lose the house. We need you." And without thinking, she had stepped in, co-signed, paid bills she never saw, took on credit she never touched. It was supposed to be temporary. A few months, maybe a year. It turned into a decade. She remembered the nights eating instant noodles while scrolling through payment deadlines on her cracked phone screen. The jobs that blurred together, mornings as a receptionist, evenings cleaning offices, weekends bartending weddings she was never invited to. There had been moments when Olivia couldn't breathe from the weight of it, sitting alone in the dark of her tiny apartment, whispering to herself that someday, somehow, she would dig her way out. The worst part wasn't even the hunger or the exhaustion. It was the silence. Her parents never asked how she was managing. Her sister never offered to help. There were no thank yous, no check-ins, only more requests. "Just cover this bill, Liv. It's just this once. You're doing better than us." Better? She had laughed bitterly into the cold air more times than she could count. They hadn't seen the second-hand clothes, the broken heater she couldn't afford to fix, the weeks she went without gas in her car just to make minimum payments. They didn't want to see. And yet, even then, Olivia had clung to hope. Hope that loyalty would eventually turn into love. That one day, her sacrifice would mean she belonged. That maybe they would look at her not with need in their eyes, but with pride. The bus rumbled to a stop in front of her, brakes hissing against the cold street. Olivia climbed aboard, sliding into a seat by the window, her reflection staring back at her. She looked tired, sure, but stronger too. The kind of strong that doesn't announce itself loudly. The kind that's built quietly in the dark. She leaned her forehead against the cold glass and let her eyes drift shut. She thought of the final payment she had made just 2 months ago, the moment the debt counter had hit 0. There had been no confetti, no champagne, no one waiting to hug her. Just a quiet evening in her apartment, a cheap bottle of wine and a tearful smile she had given herself in the mirror. It wasn't the ending she had once imagined, but it was hers. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The soft glow of Christmas lights wrapped around Olivia's tiny living room, casting golden reflections onto the freshly polished floor. She had spent the whole afternoon decorating, not because anyone would visit, but because she believed in the magic of hope, even when reality hadn't earned it. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air, a candle flickering bravely against the gathering dusk. She had spent hours carefully picking out gifts for her family. Nothing extravagant, just things she knew they needed. A heated blanket for her mother's aching back. A personalized leather wallet for her father, stitched with his initials. A luxury hand cream set for her sister, who always complained about her dry hands in winter. Olivia had wrapped each present herself, curling the ribbons perfectly, writing little notes tucked under the bows. Notes that said things like, "I'm proud of you," or "You deserve comfort," even though she wondered if they would even read them. As she tucked the gifts into a large tote by the door, her heart swelled with cautious hope. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe paying off their debts had bought her a ticket back into the family fold. Maybe now they would see her not as an endless well to draw from, but as a person. Their daughter. Their sister. She had even splurged on her outfit for the day, a soft burgundy sweater and simple black slacks, understated but festive. It wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up. About saying without words, "I'm here. I've always been here." Outside, the first flakes of snow began to drift from the gray sky. Olivia stood by the window, watching them dance under the streetlights, her fingers absently tracing the frosted glass. Memories of Christmases past flickered through her mind, the ones where she had sat quietly while Tyler opened the biggest presents, while her parents beamed at him like he had hung the stars himself. She had convinced herself that her time would come, that patience and loyalty would be enough. This year, she thought, maybe they would finally save her a seat at the table. Maybe there would be a stocking with her name stitched across it. Maybe they would see her. The clock ticked past 7. Olivia double-checked her phone. No messages yet, but she wasn't worried. They were probably just busy with last-minute preparations, bustling around, laughing, teasing each other as they always did. She imagined her mom fussing over the ham, her dad pretending not to care, but secretly checking to make sure the house looked perfect. Tyler, cracking jokes, making everyone laugh. She smiled at the thought. She slipped on her boots, pulled on her coat, and gathered the tote of carefully wrapped gifts. Her heart beat a little faster. She locked the door behind her, stepping into the crisp December night, feeling the snow crunch under her feet. She was ready, or so she thought. As Olivia reached her car, the sharp buzz of her phone in her pocket made her pause. A rush of excitement and nerves flushed through her. Maybe it was her mom asking when she would arrive. Maybe they were waiting for her, her seat already set, a glass of cider poured in anticipation. She slid her phone out, her breath curling in the frosty air as she unlocked the screen. A single message glared back at her, short and cutting. "Mom, please don't come. It's awkward. You make us feel poor. We need a simple, joyful Christmas. Hope you understand." For a long moment, Olivia just stared at the screen. The words blurred in front of her eyes, sharp as ice, cutting through all the warm hope she had been cradling in her chest. Her fingers numbed against the cold. but she didn't move. Not a blink. Not a sound. Just the raw, hollow ache blooming from somewhere deep inside her. It wasn't about money. It never had been. It was about her. No matter what she did, whether she gave everything, whether she stayed silent, whether she fought or yielded, she would never be enough for them. Not the kind of enough they wanted. She had paid off the debt that weighed their lives down for years. Yet somehow her success, her mere existence, made them feel poor. Slowly, Olivia lowered herself onto the driver's seat, the tote bag of carefully chosen gifts sagging next to her, as if even the packages could feel the weight of rejection. She stared out the windshield, the snow thickening into a quiet storm around her. Christmas lights blurred into halos. For a moment, she thought about driving over anyway, about knocking on the door with a bright smile, pretending she hadn't read the text, pretending everything was fine. But pretending had been her whole life. Tonight, she chose differently. Her hands, steady now, moved deliberately. She opened her banking app, pulled up her statement, clean, proud, a monument to every sleepless night, every budget meal, every exhausted weekend she had worked overtime. Without a single word, she screenshotted it and sent in reply. Then, her thumb hovered for half a second, just long enough for the final pang of grief to pass. She blocked the number, blocked them all. The silence that followed was a strange kind of peace. Painful, yes, but pure. No more waiting for a validation that would never come. No more chasing a family that had built a home where her presence was always optional, always conditional. The phone lit up and buzzed wildly as other numbers tried to get through. Her father, her sister, even Tyler, each one a burst of desperate noise she would no longer answer. She started the car. The radio clicked on automatically, filling the cabin with a soft, familiar Christmas carol. Olivia didn't sing along. She didn't cry. She simply drove away, the snow swallowing her tire tracks behind her, as if she had never been there at all. Olivia didn't check her phone again until she was parked safely at home, the house silent except for the hum of the heater kicking on. It sat face down on the coffee table, buzzing like a dying bee every few minutes, desperate to pull her back in. She let it. She watched it, but she didn't answer. The notifications piled up faster than she could count. Missed calls, voicemails, angry texts, desperate ones, threatening ones, begging ones. Her sister, Marissa, led the charge. Text after text after text. How could you embarrass us like that? Do you have any idea what you just did? Mom is crying. Dad is furious. Tyler is devastated. You're so selfish, Olivia. It's always about you. Each one hit her phone like a pebble against glass, but none of them cracked the new calm she wore like armor. She knew exactly what she had done. For the first time in her life, she had refused to perform for their approval, refused to bend into the shape that made them comfortable. She had shown them the truth, that while they had belittled her, dismissed her, acted as if she were a burden, she had quietly carried their load for years. And when they no longer needed her to carry it, they discarded her, too. It wasn't anger she felt now. It wasn't bitterness either. It was freedom. Freedom from the need to explain herself. Freedom from the exhausting weight of constantly chasing a moving target. Love that was always conditional. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her father. A text popped up. Pick up. Now. We need to talk. Olivia stared at the screen, her thumb hovering for a second. Then, without a sound, she turned the phone over, silencing the world once more. She poured herself a cup of tea, chamomile, her favorite, and curled up on the couch under a thick, knitted blanket. Outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the street in white, smoothing over all the jagged edges of the world. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even sad anymore. She was just done. A knock came at the door around midnight, frantic and heavy. She didn't move. Let them knock. Let them call. Let them scream. She was no longer reachable in ways that mattered. Somewhere between the knock and the cold wind howling against the windows, Olivia realized she didn't have to keep bleeding herself dry just to be worthy of standing in the background of their picture-perfect lives. She was already enough. And for the first time in years, she chose herself. The new year crept in without fanfare. No champagne. No crowded living room full of relatives shouting the countdown. No forced hugs or fake resolutions. Just Olivia, standing alone by the window, watching fireworks explode in the distance, each burst reflecting in her calm, steady eyes. A fresh year, a fresh beginning, a fresh Olivia. She sipped her tea and made a promise. Not aloud, not scribbled in a journal, but deep inside where no one could touch it. This year, she would stop making herself small so others could feel big. Her silence had already rattled them. Her refusal to engage, to argue, to explain, had left them confused and frantic. And now she would show them just how strong she had become. She wasn't interested in petty revenge. She didn't want a scene. She wanted them to feel the absence they created. To understand the hollow space left behind when you push someone away for too long and they finally stop coming back. And so Olivia got to work. She blocked every family number, deleted their emails without reading them, politely declined every mutual friend's invitation that even hinted at trying to patch things up. She withdrew quietly from every space they occupied, like mist disappearing at sunrise. She sold the house she had grown up in, the one she had inherited from her grandmother, not from her parents. A house filled with memories of her being left out, overlooked, ignored. And with that money, she bought a place she truly loved on the outskirts of town, with wide open land and towering oak trees that whispered peace instead of judgment. A few weeks later, she opened her own business, a small accounting firm specializing in helping people climb out of debt, something she knew far too much about firsthand. Her new office was modest but filled with sunlight and warmth, a mirror of the life she was building brick by brick, with no help from anyone who once called themselves family. And every now and then, word would trickle through mutual friends. Stories of how her sister had struggled with new financial troubles, how her parents fought constantly about money, how holidays were no longer the same. She listened, smiled politely, and went back to her coffee. They were feeling her absence now. The silent pillar they once leaned on without gratitude was gone. The golden child, the favored ones, were left to wobble without her steadying hand. And still Olivia said nothing. No gloating. No long-winded speeches about how they had treated her. Only a soft, peaceful silence that said louder than any words ever could. I don't need your approval. I never did. The fireworks faded. The town quieted down. And in her new home, surrounded by everything she had built herself, Olivia felt it finally settled deep inside her chest. Freedom. Real, unshakable freedom. And this was just the beginning. It wasn't long before the silence became too much for them. One chilly February morning, Olivia's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She let it ring, then another and another. Voicemails flooded in, full of desperate apologies, half-hearted explanations, promises that things would be different if she would just call back. She didn't. A few days later, she received a long, rambling email from her father, the same man who had once told her she made them feel poor just by existing. Now he wrote about how much they missed her, how proud they were of everything she had accomplished, and how families should stick together through thick and thin. There was no real apology, no ownership of the pain they had caused, only guilt wrapped in flowery words and empty nostalgia. Olivia closed the email without responding. Then came the final act, the desperate gesture. Her sister Madison showed up at her office unannounced, clutching a bouquet of cheap supermarket flowers and wearing a tight, fake smile. Olivia's assistant buzzed her before letting Madison in, giving Olivia just enough time to decide. She stood up from her desk, smoothed her blazer, and opened the door herself. Madison's face lit up in relief, but Olivia only gave a calm, polite nod. No hug, no tears, just calm distance. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Madison began, voice trembling slightly. We were wrong. Mom and Dad, they miss you. I miss you. Can't we just go back to how things were? Olivia let the silence stretch, heavy and awkward, until Madison's fake smile started to crack. Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice steady and kind but firm. Madison, you don't miss me. You miss what I did for you. You miss how I made things easier. There's a difference. Madison opened her mouth to protest, but Olivia raised a hand gently, stopping her. I wish you all the best, Olivia said quietly. Truly, but I'm not coming back to a place where I was only valued for what I gave, not for who I am. And with that, she closed the door softly, leaving Madison standing in the hallway, clutching the wilted flowers like a child who had lost her way. No yelling, no dramatic confrontation, just the quiet power of finally choosing herself. Later that night, Olivia sat on her back porch, wrapped in a soft blanket, listening to the wind rustling through the trees. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She hadn't needed to burn bridges. She had simply walked away and let the silence speak for itself. She had learned that true peace doesn't come from making others see your worth. It comes from never needing their permission to have it in the first place. And for the first time in her life, Olivia knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Free, unapologetic, whole. The weeks turned into months, and Olivia found herself smiling more freely, breathing more deeply. Without the constant weight of judgment, she could finally enjoy the life she had built, with no one belittling her for it. She started hosting small gatherings with friends who had always supported her without strings attached. She traveled solo, something she had always dreamed of but felt guilty doing before. Each step away from her old life stitched her soul back together, one peaceful moment at a time. One evening, while walking along the river downtown, she passed by a familiar sight, the city's grand new community center. A project she had quietly funded with the money she had once been guilted into sharing with her family. Her contribution plaque was tucked modestly to the side, reading only, "To those who choose themselves." Olivia stopped for a moment, letting the golden lights of the building wash over her, feeling a deep swell of pride. She had turned her pain into purpose, her silence into strength. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Back at home, Olivia finally took down the old family photos that lined her hallway, not in anger but in acceptance. She placed them carefully in a box, labeling it the past. Thank you. That night, as she sat by the window sipping tea, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another chance to reopen old wounds. She smiled softly and pressed block. No anger, no sadness, just quiet finality. Then she posted a single sentence on her social media, not tagging anyone, not directing it at anyone in particular. Just words she had earned through every heartbreak, every lonely night, every brave choice to stay silent and strong. Some bridges are meant to be burned so the light can guide you home. Within minutes, friends flooded her with hearts and encouragement. Some understood the deeper meaning. Most just felt the truth radiating from it. Olivia leaned back, feeling a warmth in her chest that no apology from her family could have ever given her. It was self-respect. It was peace. It was freedom. The golden child had never been her. The outsider had always been her gift. Because being different, being strong enough to walk away, being brave enough to choose herself, those things had made her rich in ways money never could. As the city lights twinkled outside her window, Olivia knew one thing for certain. She hadn't lost a family that never really saw her. She had finally found herself. And this time she wasn't letting go.